Alright, looks like we're live. I'm going to swap over to the Jamstream layout in just a second. Just making sure everything is set up here. I think we're good on sound. Making sure all the levels are close to what they normally are. Bruh. Alright, I'm gonna jump over to the Jamstream layout now and we'll start getting set up here. Bruh. All right, looks like everything loaded properly. So welcome back once again to our pretty much weekly jam streams here on the channel. Like I had mentioned in our previous sessions, one of the ongoing projects that I want to work on as part of the content here on YouTube is learning the loop station. And as a quick recap for folks that may be tuning in for the first time, the instrument that I'm working on and I'm trying to learn through these sessions is the Boss RC505 loop station. It's a pretty common instrument used in beatboxing for things like loop station content and whatnot. And we started working with this a bit over the last couple streams, but I wanted to take some more time to exploring the commands and different effects, since again I'm only been using it for several months now, off and on, and now that things are going here on the channel, I want to make it a more regular focus of the content. But before we get into the loop proper, I did want to work on some warm-up stuff, just to, one, give people a chance to make it over to the stream, and also because since I'm going to be doing a lot of sounds here, I'm going to need a chance to warm up. And it'll also be a good chance for me to make sure all of the levels and settings on my sound are good. I think the reverb set here. That's fine. Once people start showing up, I'll make sure everything is coming through clearly, but on the OBS readout, I'm seeing everything staying out of yellow unless I get really close to the mic. But I'm going to try not to do that, since the reason I have this configured this way so I don't have to be eating the mic when I'm either talking or making noise. All right. So to start, I'm going to work on some warm-up drills, and then we'll start messing around with the loop itself and putting sounds together shortly after. So let's see, we can start with some basic snare kick and hat drills, and then I'll probably mix in some other bass type stuff, and this will be a good chance for me to test the audio levels as well. Let's see. Switch. My camera's falling off my monitor here. All right. Getting a little bit of feedback in my headphones. I'm not sure if it's from my EQ setting. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's exactly what's causing that. Okay, I think that's good for warm up. For today's session, I didn't really want or plan to go over any specific beatbox sound theory or analysis. I suppose if people have questions as we are getting going and working with the loop itself, we can always take a break and stop if I need to talk through and explain anything. But I think what I want to do, make sure I save my settings here. I think what I want to do is start just tinkering around with the basic input and track level effects, since again I'm just learning this instrument, and getting a chance to see what a lot of these things do and how they apply to music making is going to be useful, especially when we start getting into things like BGM, brainstorming, and stuff like that. So I think what I'll do to start, since I want a bass to work off of here, is I think I will create a pretty simple 2-track beat, and then we'll take a look at some of the input effects. And there's a couple different approaches I want to break down here when it comes to construction. So let's see. I think the first experiment will be sort of the same approach that I've done on activities of the loop so far, which is putting down an actual constructed beat and then moving on to things like a bass line and whatnot. And there's a couple different methodologies for that, and we can talk about that in a little bit. So let's see. I think for the first one, we'd probably try and go for something simple. Maybe a mid-tempo kind of hip-hop-ish type beat. Again, I'm doing this on the fly. I didn't come up with anything before the stream because I wanted it to be a bit more improv. So let's see. We could try something like similar to our warm-up beat. I'm going to prototype something and then I'll actually go and try and record it here on the loop. So let's see. We could try something like... All right, let's see if we can get that captured. gonna keep track volume about here until I get some feedback as to whether or not it's too loud and you can't hear what I'm saying. Alright, just like we've done before, we want to set up a bass line. I'm going to use guitar to bass for that. Let's check our bass levels. That's with nothing on, about quarter. Let me go a little higher. About there. I think that'll do. About there. I think the melody on the bass is fine, but I think the timing is slightly off. Let me try and fix that. All right, let's try it again. All right. Bruh. Bruh. I just realized there's like a half-second delay when I recorded the bruh button for this one. I should probably fix that if I want to use it. Let's see. Set a reverb up here. That's probably good. Bruh. 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 Ah, much better. I have the bruh button set to a one shot on the final track. It's been kind of a running gag here on the streams. But now it doesn't have the half-second delay, so I can use it just by pushing it on time. Bruh. 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 Alright. What we can do now is set up our track effects. I think for now the input effects are good. Let's see, I usually set beat repeat on A, I guess. Got filter on B. And what about C? Now that one's kind of fun. That's tape echo. The tape echo command creates this kind of distorted echoing sound across the tracks, which is kind of fun. And of course, this is the slicer effect. Let me fix my stream status real quick. I just accidentally deleted my drum track. Wanted to pause it for a sec. Oh, guess I'll have to record a new one. What I've done is I just cleared off all the tracks that we've been working on. That was sort of just a prototype one, so I could get all my effects and settings squared away there. So now we've taken everything off. I'm going to start over. I did want to talk a little bit about another method that I've seen a lot of really established loopstation beatboxers use when it comes to creating the structure and overall sort of skeleton of the song that they're going to be creating when they're doing loops. So what you've seen me do on the last few streams, since it's sort of the way I learned initially when it comes to storing information and sort of creating the bare bones of the beat, is you'll see me put down an actual fully fleshed out rhythm of sorts And just like we saw before, if I was doing that beat, I would put that whole thing down and then loop that. Another useful strategy that I'm not too good at, and so this is going to be a good opportunity to practice, is actually creating the beat component by component on the same loop track. And so what that means is typically to set the rhythm of the track, the beatboxer will put like a kick down, and then they'll loop that, and then they'll record the next part like a hat. They'll record that, and they'll record the snare, and they're overdubbing the same loop track instead of doing it all in separate ones. And so what that's doing is it's creating the drum track instrument by instrument and building. Because I haven't been doing it too much here, but you're actually able to redub the same track. I think probably an infinite amount of times. It just recycles, and then you can add in more instruments or more effects to the same track. And the advantage of doing that is you can put different input effects on each instrument if you want each instrument to be distinctly different. Like if you wanted to add a reverb to just the snare, you would create the snare separately in the overdub and then have that apply and then take it off and then put something like your hat runs or something like that. And it's a bit more dynamic, and it's really neat to watch. So I'm going to attempt to do that here using a similar style of beat, and this will be a good chance for me to learn how the overdubbing works since I've only tinkered around with it a couple times. So let's probably start with something a bit more mid-tempo so I can keep track of it better. So I'm going to set up a kick line, and then we'll look at how the overdub actually comes into play when it comes to applying additional layers, if we're thinking of the track like layers. So let's see, we can go all right. This may take a couple different tries unless I get it right on the first try, which is probably unlikely. Got the kick line going here, sort of mid-tempo. Now I'm going to try and attempt to insert a hat on the overdub. Let's see, time it right here. Okay. Now I'm going to try and add a snare. And I think I'm going to go PF snare for this one, but I'm going to add some reverb. Let's see. How's that? A little too much? Alright, let's see if we can get that to go here. What we have here, just taking a look at the settings, what we have here is a 3-instrument single percussion track that was done layer by layer. And the advantage of doing it this way that you can't do if you're doing one beatbox continuous rhythm is that you can layer simultaneous sounds. So like if I were to try to do this, if I turn it off for a second, if I was trying to do that same beat just with me and making the sounds in my mouth, I'd be able to do something close. I could probably do something like a but I can't layer simultaneous sounds because I can't do that physically with my mouth. But with this particular layered version, you can have the hat, the kick, and the snare all at the same time. So it's definitely a lot more, like I said, dynamic when giving options for complexity. But now let's see how we go about adding a bass line to this thing. We go back to guitar to bass. See if we can fill around some of the other track level effects and see how they affect our basic song here. This is octave. What I did on the fly here is I was messing around with this is I actually turned the track level effects off for the rhythm, which is something you have control over on each of the individual loop tracks themselves. If you don't want something to be affected by the track level distortion effects or whatever you're going to be adding, you can just disable that for one, and then like if I turn on a filter, it doesn't affect the rhythm at all. Seem like octave really does a whole lot to just the bass line by itself. Alright. Got track effects on the rhythm again. Another thing that I haven't messed around with, I forgot was in here, ability to reverse the track, individual tracks by themselves. So if we do that to the bass line, you can see how it changes. Because of the way the rhythm is set up, it's a little bit stuttery towards the end. It's kind of a neat effect that you can do just on the fly. If I do it to the rhythm itself, this is what it would sound like if the rhythm percussion was reversed as well. Turn it off. This one is called transpose. We didn't look at this one last time. I think this one is actually in sort of like a step shift for music. Yeah, I can actually shift the melody parts. Let me turn this off for the rhythm and see if we can do the bass line. Looks like each increment on the effect knob sort of affects how it transposes it, either upward or downward. I wonder if it's by octave. It's kind of an interesting effect. Seems like that one would be tough to control unless you know exactly how you want to mess around with the direction or the key. Alright, let's see what else we got. Actually apply the guitar to bass effect filter to the whole track if you really wanted to. It actually goes for a lot of the input effects, can be applied at the track level as well. It's almost the exact same set of effect commands. This one's called lo-fi. It's sort of a fuzzy distortion over everything. This one's called synth. Appropriately enough, it applies a synth line. Yeah, what it's doing is it's applying a synth effect over everything it's detecting. So if I had it applied to the rhythm, then it's giving you kind of consistent 1-2 1-2 synth. Without it, it sort of hits off the different points of the bass line, which is kind of interesting. Pretty loud. And we got the vinyl flick, like a record scratch type effect. That one's interesting. It's a little bit tricky to use, though. This is the beat scatter one we looked at previously. That's the one that adds sort of a random scattered effect to the entire track itself and sort of mixes it up. And there's several different presets. Well, there's presets to all these different effects, whether you're using them at the input level or the track level. And as we go about learning the loop, I think it's going to be interesting to tinker around with those settings as well, since I don't know how it changes the applied effect itself. I know for scatter, the way the software is scattering the effect changes based on the type you use, which is kind of interesting. This command here is the beat shift one that we looked at previously. It messes with the rhythm by offsetting it, essentially, which is kind of a neat effect. And of course, with beat repeat. You can repeat it forward and backward. That's interesting. The default settings for beat repeat I've been using have been going forward. But if we go backwards, then it's basically like when you take a record and you move it backwards like DJs do and they're sort of mixing and scratching. there's also mix. I'm assuming this is a bit more random when it comes to how it's cutting up the sound and then repeating it. Change the actual speed that it's repeating as well. This is quarter notes, eighth notes, 30-second notes. Look at the slicer patterns as well. This one we haven't messed around with yet, but we've used this command a few times. This is pattern 1. So pattern 1 is halving the rhythm steps, I think. Pattern 2 is like an offsetted syncopated rhythm, it sounds like. That's kind of cool. Hard to tell with pattern 3. Seems like it's putting more emphasis on the offbeat. Pattern 4 looks like it's a variation on the syncopated rhythm again. Pattern 5 is kind of like pattern 3. Oh, there's a lot of these. Pattern 6. Seven. Eight. Wow, there's a lot of these. Goes up to, wow, 20 different patterns. To me, they start sounding similar after about pattern 8. I'm going to leave the syncopated one on for now. Bruh. All right. Another track level one, and it's an input one too, that I don't think I've messed around with a ton here is flanger. This one functions kind of like filter with the effect it applies. It gives it sort of a hollowish metallic effect that goes over the whole thing. You can change its rate too. And the depth. Oh, resonance too. Bruh. We have another one called phaser. Functions like filter and flanger. It's a bit more of a kind of laser effect over the whole thing. See what else we can do here. I guess as we're sort of experimenting around with the loopstation commands here, we can sort of segue into the brainstorming session for future BGM tracks. I had a couple ideas I wanted to try out in practice with the loop here. So I think what I'm going to do is mess around with some ideas that I had for potential future tracks, and then when I sit down to actually start recording this stuff later, I can refer back to the footage and see if anything jumps out. I have a whole bunch of recording stuff that I'm going to need to do. I need to record and mix the one that we did in the last jam session. I also need to record or re-record and duplicate the ones that we did in the drawing stream. So next off day I get, I'll probably be sitting down and plugging this thing into my recording software so that we can get the tracks together. Let me see. I'm going to clear off the stuff that we're working on here. Turn filter off. That sort of mid-tempo beats all right, but I don't think I'm going to hold on to it for now. So clear that. Clear that. So let's see. An idea that I had for a BGM track that is different from everything we've come up with so far on these jam sessions is the idea of a waltz tempo. track. And I'm not a composer by any means, but the rhythm and overall feel of something like a waltz-ish type track would be very different, and it would stand out from some of the others, and I think that could be fun. The real key will be, aside from the rhythm, which I think is what, 3/4? Is that the time for waltz? The real key will be coming up with the bass line, and I would like to do a melody track for this one so that it's not just a beat plus a bass line. I would like to put a sort of melody track over it. So let me see. From what I know, waltz type tempo would be something a little bit slower, and beat itself would be something like a I think that's 3/4. Somebody who's a trained musician could probably tell me. So let's see. Let's see if we can get that set up first. See if we can get the end a little bit tighter. Okay. Now let's see if we can come up with a bass line. I want to do something that's not quite as complicated as some of the other ones, but it's going to give us a good underlying low tone. Then we can experiment with the rhythm or the melody. The rhythm itself isn't going to change. Let's see how we're doing for bass here. A little higher. Hard to tell. Could probably leave it about there. Pretty close to what we've been doing on the last couple. And what I'm thinking for the bass line to be kind of like a two note, what do they call it? A 2-note run that goes upwards, kind of like a dun 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 with the actual bass filter on. So let's try it. I'm gonna need to time that a little bit better. I'm trying to study the way the beat lays out, so I can time it perfectly here. Still off. I know what's causing some confusion here. I have a two repeat loop on the waltz beat, as opposed to just a one measure repeat. That's why the timing is screwing me up here. I'm gonna re-record that. So if we go, yeah, that'll work. I just need to get the ending to sync a little better. There we go. that sounds okay. I think that sounds okay for now. I might change that later. We'll see. We'll see what kind of other options we have. I wonder if the bass line would be better if I did 3 notes. I went 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2. That might sound better as opposed to 2. Let's see. I'm gonna give that a try. I can always re-record it if I don't like it. All right, back on bass settings here. I think that fits the rhythm a little bit better, at least. Beat repeat trying to turn it into a drop works really strangely with a waltz tempo. I guess that's probably why you don't see them do that in those types of songs. I think the beat's too irregular for it to try and cut into something that's gonna resemble like an EDM drop or something like that. Messing around with some hi-hat accompaniment just for fun. I think it's a little distracting. Save the stuff we're working on here. Looks like we're at 106 BPM for this. I wonder what happens if we up the speed. Wonder how it would change the way the track sounds. We can try it. That's at 160. That just makes the whole thing sound really jerky to me. I think the 106 BPM tempo is fine. This particular track effect is called chorus. I have never messed around with this one. I kind of forgot it was here. I think it's sort of adding a vocalized chorus effect to the bass line. It's hard to tell. I don't think this is necessarily a good example to test out that setting. Interesting. Roll. Okay. If I can get octave on here. Oh, there it is. I was hoping octave could let me get a couple steps higher on the bass line to make it sound different, but it doesn't look like it's going to do that. Same thing with pitch bend. All right, let's go ahead and stop there. I'm going to have to give some thought to that potential track. I do like the idea of a waltz-styled BGM track. I just don't know if there's some additional tweaks I want to make to that particular version. That may be something that I fill around with off-stream. It'll probably be lower in priority compared to some of the other ones we did. But let's see. Could go back and experiment around with some of the stuff that we've done previously. I've saved the last couple sections where we worked with the loop, so all the work I have is still in here. And let me see, which one was the one we did on the last jam stream? I think might have been 22. The sound settings for these different tracks are, I try and duplicate them each time, but they're not exactly the same depending how I saved them. So let's see, this should have been the one that starts the bass line first. Yeah, okay, I remember this one. Oh, that's right. This one went to a slice after that. All right, now I got the drop again. No, hey Edward, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. I was revisiting the BGM track that we were working on last jam stream. Wanted to refresh my memory on how we had it structured, and also to see if any of the other effects and things we've been looking at can be applied to sort of mix things up. How's the audio balance? I have the actual beat turned down a little bit so I can talk. But are you able to hear me clearly? Okay, good. I think I've got the vocal settings for the loop here more or less figured out. That's probably not going to stop me from asking everybody whenever we jump on here. All right, let's see. I think we messed around with the tempo before. It gets a little bit messy when you start speeding it up that high. All right, let me switch tracks over here. Bruh. The one I was working on before, I don't know if you had already jumped on the stream by the time I was finishing up this other prototype, but I was messing around with a waltz type BGM track and experimenting with a combination of a waltz rhythm plus a real simple 4-note bass line, I guess would be going upwards. But I jumped over here and I'll load up the one I was working on in case you missed it. I'm still thinking about how I want to approach this one, so it's not finalized by any means, but this should be the right track. The way we've set this up here is on a 3/4. I think it is 3/4 time signature. I wonder if the snare would be better if I use the PF one works all right. If I were to switch it up and use a K snare instead, I wonder how much different it would sound. If I were to do something like, I think that hits a little bit too sharply. I feel like if the way classical waltzes are played, it would be on classical instruments like a regular snare drum. So changing it to a more sharp sounding, almost rim shot type snare wouldn't necessarily mesh well. But here's the bass line added in that I added. Yeah, the overall feel of this one is definitely different compared to the other ones that we've done so far. I had mentioned when I was putting stuff down for this one that I'd like to add a melody to it, but I'm not quite sure how I want to do that quite yet. I'm going to think about that some more, probably off stream, and when I eventually sit down to record these, I'll think about how I want to do a melody, what kind of instrument I'd want. It might just be a simple hummed melody on top of the bass line plus rhythm. But I will give that some thought. Let's see. Other than that, the majority of the stuff that I've been working on today has just been tinkering around, experimenting with the loop commands, and using pretty simple simple prototype beats to apply the commands. The main point of the jam session today was to do that and focus on experimenting with the loop and seeing how it works, since again I'm still learning and figuring out how a lot of these commands work. At some point in the future, one thing I would like to do, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do it here in my recording space, is hook up my synthesizer. I inherited a pretty decent quality synthesizer that can output directly to the loop station, so I can record things off of it and use that in loops. The problem is the synthesizer itself is massive. It's like 6 feet long, like 2 feet wide. It's not terribly heavy, but it's just big. It's big and bulky, and I don't have enough room on my desk here to set it up. In fact, I don't even know how I would set up in this recording space. I think I would have to get like a bench, like a parallel bench or a perpendicular bench, put it on there, and then output all the wires to my loop. But being able to import in the different instruments, specifically things like piano and guitars and whatnot, would be super handy with the synthesizer. I've tinkered around with it before when I first got this instrument, and it works fine. Again, it's really more of a logistics problem because I can't have it near my recording space. That's why I need a laptop, so I can do it out in another room where I have more space to set all of the equipment up. But if I can figure out a good way to factor that in, then that'll be something that we potentially introduce at a later date. I think what I'll do before I start wrapping up here, today's jam stream is going to be a little bit shorter than some of the other ones because I've got to step out for an appointment in a minute. But let me go to a new track. Actually, let me see if I can use one of the previous ones I've got listed here. I don't want to have to set up my settings. That'll take a couple minutes. So this is a different one. Which one was this? Bruh. Oh boy, that's loud. Bruh. That's really loud. Ah, this one. I don't know why this one's so much louder than the other ones. The settings, that really hurt my ears. I think this was another potential BGM track that I just had saved, but I don't remember what it was. I know it's just a beat and a bass line. Let me see if I can load it here. Oh, this one. more proficient with the loop station and all of its features. Doing covers of video game music is something I definitely want to do at some point. I feel like I probably know enough to be able to do some really basic, kind of low-level stuff. But I definitely want to work on that some more. There's another one that I know how to do that I'd have to reset up the loop with some different sound settings, and maybe I'll record that as sort of an offline thing and upload that on the channel. But I actually have that particular routine stored on here. It's just my settings were all screwed up when I did it. It was a lot earlier. But maybe I'll record that in the future and put that up for you guys. It'd be kind of fun. I think it's an RPG song most people who've at least played Super Nintendo RPGs could recognize. Bruh. Saved in the bank. I'll probably record this one into another BGM loop at some point. I kind of forgot it was in here. And stop that. Okay, this particular track was the one that we were working on before. So I need to just remember which ones I have saved in here. Like I was mentioning earlier on in the stream, I'll be sitting down to do some recording, hopefully soon, when I get a spare minute. And then I'll be doing a whole bunch of these at once. I'm going to be recording the Just Vibin' track that we did last jam stream. I'm going to re-record and then mix the ones from the last drawing stream, since those were kind of fun. And then I'll start thinking about what else I want to pull from the bank here on the loop. So potentially between now and probably the next several weeks, I want to finish recording at least 3 or 4 of these loops and start putting them together. I haven't quite figured out what I want to do content-wise, aside from using them on streams. But like I talked about before, maybe what I can do once I'm satisfied with the quality is combine them into a pack and then put them on a site to download, something like Bandcamp or something. I would put them up for free if people want to download them and use them for background music on their streams or YouTube videos or whatever. So that'll be the first priority. I'll probably put something on the channel when I do that. Maybe I can do like a loop demo video where I just have all the tracks uploaded there so people could see what they sound like, and then link to whatever page I can find to put them up. I could do SoundCloud too. I've used SoundCloud to download other stuff, but I've never actually created a content account there. Well, we'll have to see. I'm just gonna put the waltz prototype back on while we'll get ready to wrap up here. think that will do it for today's jam session. Like I mentioned earlier, the main point was a bit more of experimentation today. I do want to work with this idea for the waltz track a little bit. I'll think of some things offline, and maybe next time we get together, I can bring sort of an update, especially if I finalize anything for the track itself. The next time we do a jam stream, which I don't know if I'm going to schedule one of these next week, the next one is going to be primarily focused on beatboxing. I will most likely have some more sound theory and analysis stuff to talk about, or at the very least it'll be a straight beatbox practice session. Since the last one before this was kind of a hybrid as I introduced the loop, and then this one focused primarily on the loop. So we'll swing back to beatboxing, and then in the future I will bring the loop back, especially as I learn more, and then I can demo stuff and show that off to you guys on stream. And eventually, the plan for the loop station, in addition to creating music and content for the channel and things that I can use, I want to be able to create some more fully fleshed out songs and routines. And as I get better with the tools, and when I learn how to do that, then I might do something like an actual loop concert stream where I have everything planned that I want to do, and I basically perform, in quotes, the loop station routines in their entirety for you guys. And I think that'd be fun. That's going to be a bit more of a long-term goal as I get used to the instrument and learn how it works. But in the meantime, it's a pretty useful and neat tool. It's just very, very complex. I'm going to continue using it as the main background source on things like the drawing streams. I think we'll be doing at least one of those next week. Between today and tomorrow, I need to finalize next week's stream schedule. I think next week is going to be normal. There should be 3 days next week. But the following week, there may be 1 or 2 streams, a little bit less than normal. And then the following week, which is the first week of August, I believe, I'm going to be off. I'll be actually on vacation. So the goal between now and then is to figure out a bunch of content that I want to have up on the YouTube channel so that you guys have stuff to watch. I think I'm going to probably focus on Guilty Gear videos and put a bunch of those up. And I will think about some other things that I can put up there that'll be scheduled content to go up that week of August. We'll talk about this more when it gets closer. But I definitely don't want the channel to be sitting idle for a week or a week and a half, however long I'm out. But that's something I'm working on in the background. But that being said, once again, thanks to the folks who stopped by to listen in as I tinkered around with the loop station today. I will be continuing to work on stuff behind the scenes, and we'll keep everybody updated on the channel as I finish things and I get ready to start posting some of it. I've also been messing around with the idea of posting some shorts. They might be beatbox routines or patterns or something like that. If I end up doing those would also be content that can go up later on once we get to August. But I think that'll do it for this one. Once again, thanks to everyone for hanging out. I will catch you guys next time. Have a good evening.